Kevin, we are live and recording.
Thank you, Naya. And with the addition of David, we have 14 people on the call. And so we've met quorum. And so we can start this public meeting, shall we? And I see some more folks joining us. Welcome, everybody. My name's Kevin Altucker. I'm the lead staff on this process, the Ad Hoc Committee on Police Policy Reform. We are meeting virtually on Zoom because we're still dealing with a pandemic and complying with Governor Brown's executive order of stay home and save lives. So this is a significant meeting for many reasons. One of them is it's meeting number 14, which means it's the last of our scheduled meeting of this part of the process. And so for that, I would like to echo Ib's sentiments that we should pat ourselves on the back for completing this part of the process. It's been difficult at times. It's been emotionally draining at times, but the committee has persevered. I'm going to be suggesting that we're going to have a bit of a change to the printed agenda that went out last Friday because Kaz and I got a whole bunch of stuff sent to us between Friday and now. And so we're trying to be responsive to the committee and to pay attention to those things that came in and also pay attention to some really large societal things that happened in our country, most notably the Chauvin verdict yesterday. I think it is meaningful that this committee is on the verge of delivering a report about police reforms in this national climate that we have. So I'm going to propose that we have a change to our agenda, which includes we have Councilors Ye and Evans with us tonight. They'd like to say a few words to the committee. So there's that. Kaz has prepared a short presentation about the report that you received and some of the kind of modifications and additions that we've made since Friday. So he's going to lay that out to you. We've also had a request for Joshua Stroud from ADOS to say a few words to the committee. And so Kaz will ask the committee for your permission to allow Mr. Stroud to speak. And then we're going to review the report, and hopefully we will approve the report tonight. That is our goal. So that's it from me tonight. Kaz will be facilitating the meeting, and I'm very happy that he's here with me tonight. We couldn't do it without Kaz. I also want to thank Jeremy and Naya, who are working the Zoom room behind the scenes. We couldn't do it without you, and thank you for that. Of course, thank you to the committee members for being here this evening. Thank you to elected city officials and other city personnel who are watching and joining us, and also to folks from the general public who are tuning in. Thank you very much. So with that, I would like to toss the virtual microphone to Councilor Ye, and then we'll hear from Councilor Evans. And after Councilor Evans, Kaz, the floor is yours. So at this point, let's welcome Councilor Jennifer Ye.
Thank you for giving me a few minutes. So first, I want to thank all the committee members for the time and the hard work they have given to this process, not just for the hours of the meetings, but the time spent reading and considering materials and consulting with community members. I know that for many of you, this material was a reminder of personal and collective trauma. While I learned a lot from the policy discussions, it was the moments when community members and committee members talked of their hopes, fears, and experiences that hit home the hardest. Your courage has made this report possible and will lead to meaningful improvements in our community. I know there is a lot of concern about what happens next. Some of the committee's recommendations will be quick to implement, and others may take additional study and engagement with the community. And I want to assure you that the committee's work will not be a one and done project. We saw over the last few months that it is important to be flexible and not to rush this work. So we want your thoughts on how to proceed and your continuing input as the recommendations in this report are assessed and implemented. As a mother, I have tried to imagine what our community safety system could look like by the time my children are adults. My hope is that by the time my children are grown and their generations are the leaders, we will be much further along the road towards eliminating racism and bias. Your work over the last few months has given me the hope that this is possible. So thank you again for all of your hard work on this committee. And thanks for giving me a few minutes today.
Thank you, Councillor Ye. I don't see Councillor Evans on the call at the moment. And I don't want to hold the committee up. So I think I'm going to launch into the short presentation that I have, and then if Councillor Evans is able to join us, we'll give him a bit of time after the presentation. Just going to attempt to share my screen. I appreciate that everyone's probably a little tired of my very basic presentations by now, but I find that it helps to have this stuff written down. So this is our final meeting, and thank you all for being here. There's a few things that came up in correspondence with members that I'd like to address before we move into the report proper. And so the first one is quite a few members have asked for items that were important to the committee but didn't get discussed in what they felt was sufficient depth to be given more prominence. And there were a lot of things in people's testimony, those who were able to submit it, which do need to be highlighted because they weren't passed in motions, but they were integral to the discussions and to the general conversation on police reform. We're thinking of adding an additional paragraph in the exec summary. And after I'm done with this presentation, I will share that and people can take a look at it, see if it reflects the comments that they've made over the report. There's also the contents page, which a few people have observed does not exist as yet. The reason for doing that is simply that we're getting testimony in all the time, and between all the things that are needed to take care of what page has what on it, we felt it was best to leave that, but we will give a full breakdown of all of the content, including what's contained in the appendices. So if you've submitted testimony, it will be possible to say, my organization's testimony is in Appendix 2 or Appendix 3, page 36. So that's the reason you haven't seen the contents page. I hope you've had a chance to look at the contents themselves. When it comes to photographs, if members have any photos they'd like to see included, some of what we've got are placeholders, and the visuals are obviously important. But if you have any comments on that, we'll talk about that a little later in today's proceedings. And then finally, typos and design issues. We were very focused on getting a draft out. And as is often the case with a large document, we all saw a lot of typos, and we had some people come back with some typos, and thank you for doing that. It's made our job a little easier. But I just wanted to say that that draft was not intended to be a proofed draft. Finally, we want to give members as much time as possible. I know several people are still working on their testimony. And there's two elements to this, one of which is that if you'd like to submit a summary, I'm very happy to just do a Zoom call and to transcribe what it is that you want included in the report. And I'm available today and tomorrow, and if need be, early Monday as well. After Monday, we really can't make any more changes because it goes off to be designed, and then any changes that are made are very, very difficult to accomplish. And then finally, some members have said that there are other people who participated, including EPD staff, police auditor, and the police auditor's staff, that should be acknowledged, and that's absolutely the case. The reason we didn't have acknowledgements in the initial draft is because we're reaching out to everybody who participated and getting their permission to acknowledge them. This report is sensitive, and there may be some people who don't wish to have their names associated with it, which is absolutely fine. So we want to make sure that everybody who's named in here wants to be named in here. And then we're moving on a little bit to the purpose of the report and the reason why it's structured the way it is. So a number of members said that they weren't unhappy with the fact that there's quite a lot of preamble to this report, but that they were just a little surprised to see it. And that's absolutely fair enough. Kevin and I didn't want to spend committee time sort of wordsmithing those issues. We heard very clearly that the committee didn't want to focus on process and wanted to focus instead on the recommendations. So what's the purpose of the report? To give a clear and accurate record of the committee's deliberations, to contextualize those deliberations in the local and national conversation, to give the city council and staff all the information they need to assess and implement those recommendations, and to convey the committee's thoughts on process to city council and staff. And that's been one of the big things that's come up. It's been in a lot of people's testimony. We've tried to capture the areas where the process could be improved and will be improved in future engagement. So again, we've heard that and we've tried to incorporate it wherever possible. You may have noticed that in the between drafts, we added a disclaimer on the context section to make it very clear that this was not the committee's work. And so I hope that meets the requirements of those of you who raised that point. And then finally, just why we adopted this approach. Well, it's because there's going to be a number of different audiences to this report. Who will read it? How is it likely to be used? Well, city councillors will have the opportunity to note the report and discuss what they would like to do in terms of next steps on the 17th. We wanted to give them the best possible information on the history of policing. And we also didn't want to assume that some of the terminologies that are used in the report were kind of at the forefront of people's minds. So that's another reason why we gave that level of context. The same with city executives who will use it to set strategy. And then we're also hoping that once the process of implementing these recommendations is underway, that city staff will be able to use as a reference document. Again, we're not going to assume that any person in the city has the depth of knowledge that certainly I didn't when this process started about what policing in this country is, how it's structured, what its history is, and some of the key issues that relate to it. We're also expecting that community members will read it. And when the Register Guard article came out last week, we had a few emails and things from people with various opinions expressed, but it's clear that this is an issue of public interest. And we're also expecting that advocacy groups will use it for public discussion around police reform. And that's the reason we've taken the approach we have, going information heavy, whilst also at the same time trying to ensure that the recommendations and the experiences of committee members are front and center.
Thank you, Kaz. I appreciate
So with that, I'll stop the share.
Also, I just wanted to say, Kaz, you apologized earlier for the bland presentation, but I really appreciate that because when there's too many colors, sometimes I get anxiety from that and it triggers me to panic a little bit. And I think some other people here can probably agree with me on that. So thank you for that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that was clear. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
I did. I just I wanted to get your opinion on the recent case. Are you as upset as I personally am with the ruling?
Sorry, I'm not sure I'm aware who I'm speaking to.
I'm David.
Are you a member of the committee?
Yeah. I guess I'm up on the panelist thing.
I think you may have been included by accident. So someone correct me if I'm wrong. But
I believe you're correct, Kaz. Yes. David, we'd love to have you as an attendee.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
So, Kaz, are we keeping that?
All right, let's just carry on.
Well, hang on just a sec. I'm going to ask Jeremy and or Naya. Looks like that's been taken care of. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, sorry for that slight technical issue there. I'm seeing Marty. I don't see anyone else at the moment.
Sorry, Silver had a question that he typed in the chat a bit ago.
Okay. Silverio, and then.
Yes, thank you, Lindsay. So are we keeping that informational preamble in the report?
That is our intent, yes.
Good, okay, thank you.
I just wanted to explain why it was there because a few members asked. Marty?
So when will we get a copy of the, is this it? We're only gonna get the last version that we saw, or can we tonight get what we have up to date?
This is going to be it. The design process takes a bit of time. We have had a lot of comments from members, which will need to be incorporated, and we have a pretty short turnaround to get it to council by Friday. There's also things like the online version, which requires hyperlinking. So yeah, this is the last opportunity to feed in. What I can tell you is that while we have made extensive notes on the basis of what people have come back with, we haven't made any further changes to the report since the draft that everybody received last week.
And I'm particularly interested in the next steps, which is empty as far as I know.
Yeah.
And is that something that we're discussing tonight?
And that is absolutely something we're discussing tonight. That was going to be the next thing that I came to after taking any questions on the report more generally. And the issue here is quite simply, we've not had any recommendations. I've reached out to committee members to ask their thoughts on the report. And I think in every conversation that I've had, I've asked people what they would like their next steps to be, but the committee itself hasn't made a resolution, a motion, a determination on this in any way. And I don't have the authority or the ability, and neither does Kevin, to say anything on your behalf that you've not said yourself. So that is one major issue that we're going to need to deal with tonight. Several members have come to me saying that they might bring something to this meeting, but I don't know if anyone has anything ready.
So as part of my testimony, I was hoping to introduce a sort of proposal that within the next year, that we have a meeting a year from now, again, as an ad hoc committee, with the hope that we have had some definable policies that have been implemented, and in those areas where there has not been able to be a policy implementation, that there is some movement towards some of the suggestions that we've asked to be processed statewide at the state legislative level. In terms of a sort of setup for a proposal, I'm willing to have a discussion about it. It doesn't need to take more than 10 minutes, but I didn't want to take any time away from this committee. I definitely want to see some measurables by the end of a year, and in a year's time be able to meet up again and to see that there's been some solid results.
I'll second that because you're reading my mind. I'm precisely on track with you.
Okay, thank you both for that. I would like to hear from Erica and Ems before we move forward to discussion of a motion, just to see if they've got any further thoughts. Otherwise, the motion that's on the table, or will be on the table, is that the committee reconvene 1 year from now and also have a report back at the end of the calendar year. Am I correct in understanding that, Silverio? By the end of the calendar year?
Correct. By the end of the calendar year, that we've had some definable measures, some defined measurable outcomes coming from the policy recommendations that we've put forward.
Okay, Erica, I'd like to call on you to speak if you're happy to do so.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for the space tonight. And I did send a statement yesterday, well, today, very early in the morning. And also I attached to it some of my research about the history of police brutality in Lane County. And, I did wrote something that I would like the committee to listen and to hopefully fully support. And part of it, it talks about supporting the George Floyd Act, Police, Justice and Police Act, and also an Oregon bill that that is helping to relocate funding into the communities. And I don't know if it's possible if I can share that in here because it's a short, or I can just go ahead and read it because I thought it would be sent to the committee as in other cases, but I don't think it's a very short document. And if it's okay, I'm going to use my time to read it.
Erica, if I'd be happy to bring you in a bit later on, but I'd just like to hear from Ems, then go back to the motion on next steps.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of other bits and pieces, and then I'm going to open the floor out to anybody that wants to make a statement or to speak to the process. So Ems, I'd like to hear from you.
Sounds great. And I fully support the 1-year evaluation.
Thank you. Ems?
I was just going to bring up something like Silverio, not necessarily that motion, but something, I'll go after Silverio and Erica, and it's related to ending qualified immunity in Eugene. And also, I don't have the words correct right now in my head, but it's something related to how police unions are, how the police union is going to be a piece that we also need to look at, and not only the police themselves.
Thank you, Ems. The qualified immunity question is something a number of people have raised, and I'll be coming to that just a little bit later on. So with that, Silverio, we had a motion from you, and what I have noted down is that the committee should reconvene 1 year from now to get a report back, and that there also should be a report in 1 calendar year, by the end of this calendar year, rather, demonstrating what's been done so far. Is that a...
So some of the language that I had was, it's my hope that the council, Mayor Venice, City Manager Maderi, and those who have the ability to do so, implement the policies created within this report. In cases where the committee has asked for a change at the statewide level, these requests be done in the span of the coming year. I ask for the committee to meet again next year with the council and elected and appointed officials to see what has been accomplished and as a guide to further steps that can be taken.
Would you mind sharing that in the chat so that everyone
Yes.
can see it? And then I see Marty as well.
So a couple of points to add to that, if I could. One would be that we invite those who have resigned as well, and that we give each organization the option to send someone else in case in a year from now the people who were the original members are not available. And then I would further request that the information that we get from the city reporting out to us be sent ahead of time in a video format or something, so that we can really focus our time together in the meeting on review and feedback.
Okay, I'm just in the process of trying to, I'm struggling to copy and paste that. Kevin, would you be able to try and copy and paste what's in the chat, or possibly transcribe it while I manage discussion? So yeah, sorry, one more. Yep, go ahead, Kevin.
Yep, I'm trying and having difficulty copying it as well. Zoom does not like that.
Yep. Marty, my apologies one more time. So you wanted the organizations invited back.
Including Asian Pacific Islander and anyone else who resigned. And the second part was to focus the meeting on review and feedback. So prepare the report from the city in a recorded fashion ahead of the meeting.
Okay, so you'd like the organizations invited back. You'd like those that resigned to also be included, the option to appoint alternate people than those who served on this committee, and you'd like the information sent ahead of time, ideally in a video format. Does that cover everything? Okay. I'd like to invite some...
Does that sound okay to you, Silver?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd like to have some of the different dates that the policies were implemented, some of the different time frames where some of the policies that we recommended had outcomes, and just the sort of the fact, the data behind when they were set up and when they were done, and what is missing at the end of this time, at the end of this 1 year span.
Okay, so we can wait for Kevin to transcribe that, or we can open out to discussion on those principles as people prefer.
I sent it to you all on the email as well, you and Kevin.
Oh, brilliant, thank you so much. So if people are happy to discuss without the motion in front of them and just the general principles in their minds, I'd like to invite further discussion. Anybody has any further thoughts or concerns?
Well, my only thought.
I see that, sorry, one moment, Brian. I see the city attorney.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if it actually requires a change to the motion as it's proposed. I just want to make sure that so everybody is, has an understanding of how the city code constitutes an ad hoc committee. So as of the date, and I believe it's April 30th, it was extended a few times, the ad hoc committee itself is actually disbanded. It's not one of the city standing committees. So our code required that the city council have a date that the ad hoc committee is disbanded. So I just want to make sure that's understanding. There is no committee to reconvene. I think the request to the council is still the same, which is you'd like them to take specific action to get you all back together. But I just wanted to make sure everybody was operating on the same understanding of how the code works.
Thank you very much to the city attorney. Brian? I believe you were speaking.
Yeah, given what I was going to say and I'm about to say, that's a hard act to follow, because I was thinking, why wait a year? We're all just going to forget everything. Maybe every 6 months would seem long enough to get an update. And then we'll at least be somewhat fresh in our mind. That was my only comment, but given what the city attorney said,
okay. You can propose that as a friendly amendment if you wish to do so. But if it's just a comment, then
well, I'll make it as a friendly amendment. It's really up to the people who moved this to happen, their idea and their wonderful idea. But if they think 6 months might be okay, better, that's my friendly amendment.
Silverio, Marty.
I'm just thinking about the logistics of September, October meetings. Marty, do you have any thoughts?
I think it took us over 6 months to put this together, and I'd like to give the city some time to implement it. And I wouldn't be opposed to getting a report by email in 6 months, but I would have us reconvene in a year.
Yeah,
okay. Kevin, are you in a position to share a transcription?
I am.
Cool. If you'd like to do so, there's no, sorry, I see Daniel, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been thinking about what the city attorney shared with us. And to me, the important part of this is that there be a status report on the recommendations, some of which may have been implemented, some of which may have been in process, some of which may be just under deliberation because they require more extensive policy changes or changes at a higher level. Whether or not the members of this committee have any authority to do anything about it, I think it's really the important thing is that that status report be public, and that the public, that all of our organizations and coalitions that are working on these issues have that report in a public nature. I think a year seems reasonable given just how the wheels of city government move, and given that there will be things happening when the fiscal year changes over the summer, give the fall a chance for things to keep moving, and a report by early next year, certainly by March, seems that it would be, to me, a reasonable time frame, but even by the end of the calendar year would be helpful.
Thank you, Daniel. I hate to make you type as you go, Kevin, but if you could add Marty's points, which was that all organizations should be invited back, including those whose members resigned from this committee.
Okay.
And that information should be sent to committee members ahead of time, ideally in a video format. I see Ibrahim.
Yeah, thank you, Kaz. Listening to the city manager, this committee will not exist tomorrow. And for the city council to call us back in 1 year, I guess it's gonna take the same process it took to create this committee. Meaning, or we have to ask ourselves at what capacity we will be gathered. Again, is the ad hoc committee, meaning that the city has to create the ad hoc committee. So recreate the ad hoc committee. So I think, even though I'm going to vote yes on this, what I want to see is kind of regular update sent out to these committee members by the city in regard of the recommendation, what has been done, what is moving forward, and what is still under review by either city staff or city attorney. So, because I think when we walk out of here tonight, for the city to be able to gather the same group, it's going to take a long process. That's my understanding, unless the city attorney want to say otherwise. So I would make the suggestion that we get a regular update from the city about the recommendation that we're going to make tonight. To add to it, that in case it's difficult for the city to go back, the city council to create that ad hoc committee, go through the appointment or hiring process in this, because we're getting paid on this ad hoc committee, it may take time. So if we added language that may simplify that, saying that if the city cannot put back together the same group or create the same ad hoc committee, at least that the city commit to send regular update to the committee members.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I would like to suggest to Silverio and Marty that one way of closing the circle on this is to say, I'm asking for the organizations and individuals represented on the committee rather than to meet again next year, rather than the committee itself. Obviously, I'm not in a position to propose that myself, but if you're happy to move along those lines, Silverio?
So help me understand what you're...
So where we have the cursor, it would say, I am asking for the organizations and the individuals represented on this committee, rather than this committee, because that would require a reconstitution.
The committee come back. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Excellent. Okay, I am looking through. I don't see any further calls for discussion. And so if there are no further calls for discussion, I will take the roll call, seeing as Kevin's doing the sharing, and I'm going to start at the bottom of the list. Marty?
Yes.
We don't have Midas, Patricia, Sandra?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't believe we have Leticia Sana. I think we have David.
Yes.
Okay. Rick?
Yes.
No Quentin, no Marvin. Guadalupe?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I saw Torna.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Silverio?
Yes.
Okay, Brian?
Yes.
No, Justin. Erica?
Yes.
Joel, I think, has just hopped off the call, but Joel, if you're there. No Joel, no Rick Hamilton. Ib Hamide?
Yes.
Lindsay Foltz?
Yes, and thanks for putting it forward.
Do we have Abdul Rahman? I don't believe we have Leah. Ibrahim Koulibaly?
Yes.
Okay. No. D. Macy?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Betsy?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
And Ems?
Yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 16 to none. The motion passes. Thank you for taking care of that important piece of business. And now, in terms of the next order of business, the way that I'd like to proceed is to share with members a potential significant addendum. It's 3 or 4 paragraphs to see if you're happy. Various people have contacted us asking for some wording to be added. We felt the best way to achieve that was to add it as an addendum to the executive summary so that it's prominent. And I'm just going to share my screen. And yes, I am aware of the fact that it says exact summary. I apologize for that. So I'll give you a moment to read through that.
Kaz, could you bump the size up just a smidge?
Down in the lower right.
Sorry, I've gone about it a slightly different way.
Oh.
So please let me know when you're done reading. And
Silver asked a question. I think it's the chokehold is already banned by Vision Police.
Yes, it has been removed from policy, Silverio, is my understanding. I'm not sure if ban is precisely the right word, but I'm no lawyer, so go ahead. Silverio, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, so with the Chauvin trial, there was some language that was put out for a statement from the chief who had said that they were going to look at eliminating the chokeholds. And the language issue has sort of been there for some time. I've been asking for a ban on chokeholds. He's said that we cannot ban it, just in the cases where there might be a life or death situation has always been the response. But I would like to see some sort of a movement towards a total elimination of the use of any chokeholds from the EPD. That is not something that has been set forward as policy, but it has been something that I brought up several times.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to get members' thoughts on more generally on whether they're happy with this. I haven't heard any major stuff come back, but I do see Ibrahim, and then we'll turn to the issue of chokeholds. And after Ibrahim, I see Ems.
Yeah, I think Silver is right. There's no, I remember having a conversation with Steve Skinner around it. The language is kind of, you know they're talking about chokehold, but it's not stated clearly. And I think I would support something like that to be clear on the policy that is, it is not allowed. And yeah, you're right. I had a conversation, but it's kind of still in the gray area.
Then I see Ems.
My comment is for qualified immunity. For me, it's not only necessary that the city should lobby the state, but the city itself bans it from or takes it away from the city of Eugene or EPD.
I'd like to call on the city attorney or any of the auditor or anyone with that experience. But my understanding is the city simply does not have the power to do that. That the authority to do that sits in another jurisdiction. But Rick?
Yes, thank you. I think the confusion arises because qualified immunity arises out of cases that are filed in federal court involving Section 1983 violations of civil rights that are alleged against defendant police officers or other members of other public officials. The qualified immunity would be a matter that would have to be taken up by the federal Congress in order to abolish that, or you'd have to have some case that you would take up before a court that would change the case law on that issue. I don't think the city could do anything that makes any difference.
The city could ban it. There has been examples of New York City has done it. I think New Mexico or Nevada have done it. And Miami is moving to it.
But my point is that it wouldn't make any difference in a federal case.
Rick, please give Ems the space to finish speaking, and then I'll call back on you.
So the city could do it, but if there's a case, then it will be getting moved up with the courts, and then ultimately the Supreme Court will decide that. Whether the Supreme Court wants to, whether there's a case and then the Supreme Court says that the city, and I'm not an attorney, but it has, since other cities are doing it, there's obviously that the city of Eugene could do it. So with that, It's not up to us to make the law. I'm making a recommendation. If my recommendation is to throw a pie at every cop that misbehaves and it passes here, it will be in the report because it's a recommendation that we all pass. It does not mean that it's going to become a law. So with that said, I would like that in the qualified immunity because it's important, and other cities like the city of New York has done it.
Thank you. I'd like to give Rick the opportunity to respond to that. And then I see in this order, Erica, Brian, and Silverio.
I think the problem is that the Supreme Court of the United States cannot get this case unless it is a litigated case in federal court. The city can't be involved in a matter that would raise this issue. And the city passing an ordinance that would ban qualified immunity would not affect the availability of that defense in a case that is involved under Section 1983 of the Civil Rights Act. That would have to be a matter that would be raised in federal court in a civil case brought against an officer. The city of Eugene would not be a party to that case.
Thank you, Rick. I see Erica, then Brian and Silverio. Erica, please go ahead.
Okay, so in my statement, I do address the issue of qualified immunity. So I'm going to go ahead and just read it. The history of police brutality nationwide and statewide is reflected locally in the number of crimes committed by police members while in service. The several cases registered urge us as a community to review our vision of community-centered safety, question the role of police in our everyday lives, and reallocate how much resources we are investing in police services. The Eugene Police Department must embody the values of our city. Our public force must be responsive to the aspirations and calls of the people whom they serve. Therefore, to reduce and eliminate negative encounters between historical target communities and the police, we as a community must choose police accountability over qualified immunity. We as a city must fully support the implementation of the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act and the Oregon Senate Bill 238 at the local and state level. The Policing Act hopes to end the qualified immunity, and the Oregon Senate Bill prohibits school boards from employing law enforcement personnel. It also requires that money budgeted for law enforcement be redistributed to community outreach and meeting student mental and behavioral health needs. To do so, the Eugene City Council must allocate funding to empower community-based emergency first responders. This must include environmental, social, and cultural organizations. Housing co-ops, recreational centers, trauma centers are forgivable loans for Indigenous, Black, Asian, and people of color-owned business and services. Investing in our local communities would increase civic participation and strengthen the public trust in our local government. May we always remember that community safety first means that we all have access to food, housing, health, education, and a life without discrimination. Those officers who repeatedly abuse their power must be held accountable and liable in a civil court. They must cover their legal fees and settlement with their own money from their own retirement accounts. I encourage every member of our community and this committee to demand police accountability in the name of trust, justice, and equity. With love and rage, Erica Lincango. And I attached to this statement, I attached 25 pages of research with every case of police brutality since 1997 till the present. So I really hope the research I did can be attached to our final report, and people who are inclined towards infographics maybe can draft a little infographic about and find the patterns of behavior within our own police and see, because by doing the research, I was able to see patterns. And I think it's important that the names of the people of the community that had been victims of this brutality are said. And I remember, because these people that went through this brutality were our people from our community. They were our neighbors.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you for reading the statement out. The information that you sent through this morning will be included in the appendix, and the statement will be included in the main body of the report itself. So I hope that meets your requirements. I then see Brian and then Silveria.
You know, you people have lives and I don't because I'm a lawyer. So you don't know what I know about qualified immunity because I've been in the depths and swamps of it for years. Other than the city attorney and perhaps Rick Rosetta, both have been on the beneficial side of there being qualified immunity. I, of course, on representing people, was on the bad side of qualified immunity. But here's the deal. It's really a wonder for me that somebody started this fire and it spread like wildfire to get rid of qualified immunity in a largely national sense. It is such an impediment to people getting the civil rights remedy that they so richly deserve. All the cities you guys named, Albuquerque, I think there's one in the Midwest, New York. Rick is right. They have no influence or effect whatsoever. They make people feel good. California, on the other hand, has passed a few years ago something called the Bain Statute, the Bain Amendment. And what it does is it gives attorney fees and costs to those suing the police for state claims. Currently in Oregon and almost every state, a state claim doesn't get attorney fees, which is why people sue in federal court because you only get attorney fees from 1983 and on federal lawsuits, generally speaking, constitutional amendments.
Brian, I believe you're at 3 minutes. Kevin, I don't know if I've got the timing on that correct.
Just a few more moments on Brian.
I'll give you another 30 seconds, Brian, and then I'm afraid I'm going to have to move on.
So what I'm trying to say is, and I'm doing this with the not national, statewide NAACP, is that what we want to do is have the state of Oregon adopt the Bain Act from California so that we don't have to go to federal court for remedies against violations, and qualified immunity will become moot and dry up into nothing.
Thank you, Brian. I see Silverio and then Lindsay, and then I would really like to move forward if at all possible. We are outside of the time when we're giving actual resolutions on substantive policy issues. The resolution we passed earlier was to do with the report itself, and the same thing is true here. I'm trying to capture what members are saying as they say it, but none of what is included in here will have the force of a resolution in the final report. It's just items for discussion and consideration. So with that, I'd like to invite Silverio.
Thank you. So the language that I posted in the chat was the language that was on the Eugene Police Department's Facebook page, and specifically the language around eliminating chokeholds out of the policy. As far as the real conversation that I've had with the chief has been that they're no longer training on the chokeholds. The carotid is off the table. They're not training on that. They're not allowing for the use of the carotid. But in cases of a life or death situation, they will allow for a chokehold to be used. I think the language that I've presented, a ban on chokeholds, has been something that's been sort of a trip for us coming around to, as the chief says, let's get to yes on this. So I would propose that we would have the language that was posted here on the Facebook page, that the ad hoc committee asks that the Eugene Police Department eliminate the use of chokeholds within the department.
Second, is that what we're looking for?
We're having to do a slightly on the fly process for which I apologize. One moment. Essentially, because we're no longer in the stage where we're empowered to pass motions, none of this is a motion. This is language which is being included in the report to highlight items that are not motions or did not, for various reasons, come to be discussed fully within the committee or come to a motion, but which nevertheless members wanted to bring up because there were a few things that came up after the window for motions had closed. And then I will take a vote on it at the end. I'd like to ask Lindsay to speak, and then after that, I would like to get members either by consensus or by a vote to agree to this addendum to the executive summary. Lindsay, please go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Erica for all your work on your statement and the research you did. And I fully agree with you that it's important to speak people's names and not let them be forgotten. So thank you for bringing that into this document and doing a lot of labor.
Thank you, Lindsay. So I'd like to get a consensus check, ideally. And what I'm asking is whether this reflects the things that have been said in the committee. You may not agree with what has been said, which is why I've used the language of some members. But I just want to see if anyone has any specific issues with the accuracy of how I've recorded this discussion here tonight. And then it will go into the executive summary with the disclaimer that these are items that in most cases have not been discussed under a motion. So I think I see Ib and Erica.
If I'm not sure this is a good time to add to this, but one concern is the role of police unions. I don't think it got enough discussion so I would like to have that added to this list, if that is all right.
I'd like to hear from any other members on that proposal, then I'll move to Erica.
I would second that.
Okay, does anyone else have any feelings? I'm going to draft off some precise wording.
I think potentially putting something in there, Kaz, I realize what you're doing is very hard, so thank you. We didn't talk a lot about it, and I think part of it is because it's kind of one of the potential barriers to implementing some of the recommendations that we've made. So several, for example, of the proposals that we have unanimously put forward, it's going to be at the union bargaining level or at the level of the union that there's going to be challenges. So perhaps we could sort of highlight that. And I do think that's part of the reason why we didn't end up talking about it a lot. And I do also agree with you that it's essential to sort of call it out because it will be important in moving forward.
Okay, I just want to check that that roughly reflects what we're talking about here. The members felt the role of police unions in shaping policy and experiential outcomes for marginalized groups needs to be addressed more fully. The members are aware that many of their recommendations will require collective bargaining. I hope that reflects the discussion. Then I see Erica, and then Daniel, and then Marty, and then I really think we need to move on from this stage.
I just wanted to quickly clarify. Thank you, Lindsay, for your kind words. I just wanted to clarify that even though I'm here physically, like as an individual, I wanted to let you know that I am a product of my community, and I want to take advantage to say thank you to every member of the community who supported me to doing research and trying to find and understand policies and procedures that were foreign to me, but that I had been learning in the process. I really appreciate those members of the community that that have chosen to not be public, but I had been following up close every meeting, and they had been also been very supportive by helping with doing research, because at this point, everything that we do, we had to back up with research. So I wanted to just clarify that everything that I had been able to bring to this table is also product of a community effort with a lot of love, but also with a lot of rage and a lot of willingness for change. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And then Marty, I think you're next, so please go ahead, and then Daniel.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the police union piece. There was discussion that came up, I think, in the subcommittee that the city manager has the jurisdiction to bring in experts, I think up to 2, into the bargaining table, and that she could bring in experts who represent BIPOC voices.
Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to try and do this. Daniel, do you want to go ahead and speak while I try and
I had raised my hand before you had completed what you had written on police unions. You mostly captured it. I think that there's also a piece to piggyback on what Marty said around transparency in the bargaining process, that and some of this came up in our subcommittees as well, that that things that can shape public policy happen in collective bargaining in a non-transparent way that does have a great impact on public policy and on our communities. And if that piece of it can be represented, I think having an expert there would add to that level of transparency. So that's the only piece that I thought could be added to that.
Okay, I was completely focused on something else.
Yeah, it was just around transparency in the bargaining process, but bringing experts to represent BIPOC and marginalized communities would also have the effect of increasing the transparency of the bargaining process as it relates to its impact on public policy.
Okay, with that, I'd like to call a close. We're at 10 minutes past 7 to this stage of the proceedings. And my inclination is to not take a vote, simply to hear if anyone objects to this as a record of the conversation we just had. If anybody does, and please speak up because I can't necessarily hear you. And I will add, I will strengthen this element here to make it clear that these are items that weren't discussed in resolutions, in motions. So with that, I think we're ready to stop sharing that part of it. And it's at this stage that I'd like to invite any members who have any issues with the report as a whole. You've all had an opportunity to look at it and to assess it. Many of you have fed back, and we will do our best to incorporate that feedback as much as possible. So please, if anybody has any further thoughts on the report, speak now. And then after this, I'd like to invite the committee to consider inviting Joshua Stroud. And just by way of context, the reason this is happening is that Justin was unable to make tonight's meeting. He's on a flight, but he wanted to ensure that the voice of the group that he represents, the American Descendants of Slavery, is heard tonight. It is perfectly within the committee's purview to say we're not interested in hearing that. But my proposal is to give Joshua, especially in the light of what happened yesterday, a few minutes, maybe no more than 4 minutes, to just say a quick piece. So first of all, I'll invite members to speak on the report, and then I'll give that about 10-15 minutes. Then I'd like to invite Joshua if the members feel that's appropriate.
Do you need a motion to add this additional language into the report?
I do not, or at least I don't think so, because this will be part of what we approve when we approve the whole motion, the whole report, because it isn't a motion in itself. But if members feel that they would be more comfortable voting on it,
I would.
Okay,
I would
absolutely.
definitely. I would move that we add the additional language into the report, not necessarily as policy guidelines, but as suggestions. I know that they weren't discussed at the subcommittee level, but I do feel that there are a number of topics that are there that we, many of us feel that we were going to discuss during this past time period. So I would move that we would include that language.
Do I have a second from that? I saw a thumbs up from Guadalupe. Okay.
Second.
So Guadalupe with the second on including this information into the report. Kevin, would you be okay to do the roll call on this one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Kaz. We'll start at the top with M's.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Betsy.
Yes.
Macy.
Yes.
Ibrahim Koulibaly.
Yes.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Ib.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joel.
Yes.
Erica.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Silverio.
Yes.
Tana.
Yes.
Guadalupe.
Yes.
Rick Rosetta. Rick Rosetta. Okay. David?
Yes.
Sandra. Sandra? Patricia?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad to have you here. Marty?
Yes.
All right, just let me swing back through. Sandra, are you there? And Rick Rosetta. All right, the vote count is 16 yes and 0 no.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for bearing with me through that slightly cumbersome process. Now, I'd like to invite members to say anything else they wish to on the report, any changes they wish to see, and so on. And then after that, I'd like to, if there aren't any further comments, I'd like to invite the committee to consider bringing Joshua Stroud in for no more than 5 minutes. And then after that, we can move to a vote if committee members feel that that's the way to go. But I'd also like to give the opportunity for anyone who feels that they have something to say that they haven't had a chance to say, or they just want to comment on the process to do so. So if everybody's happy with that way of proceeding, I'd like to invite you all to make any comments on the report, any further changes you wish to see, or if you have any major issues with the report and the way that it was structured, now would be the time to highlight them. Okay, Patricia, and then Lindsay. Sorry, Patricia, were you asking to speak?
Yes, I would like to make a small comment. I'm going very disappointed about my participation because since my first participation, I requested help to analyze the police policies. For me, were the most important part were to match the current policies in the Eugene Police Department with the campaign 0 points. And we still never finished talking about anything because it wasn't the lens, the glasses that we needed to wear in place since the very beginning. We needed to really study first what the lenses we were supposed to wear to do this exercise, to go through the policies and match all the policies so we could change language that could really make sure those recommendations are put in place. So for me, living here after asking you so many times in written way, publicly and privately, without any response from you guys, even with a LULAC, my organization who is backing me up, who I'm part of, sent a letter and mentioned it in the letter, and you never came to do it. I think it is something to reflect on. Why is it, if it's really because there's no one in your system, in our system, in the city system that doesn't know this information, or why it was never done? Thank you.
Come on, Chiquito. Patricia, I'd be happy to answer some of that if you wish to have an answer, but if it was simply a comment, then I'll move on to the next one. So please let me know which of the two.
You already commented the 2 or 3 times before about it. And even I have proof that I have sent you the request via email and what you did. And also Al Tucker respond to me about it. So this is not really a confrontation. I just want you guys to reflect on this, because if you invite me to analyze policies, I want to see the policies. I don't want to see anything else but to see it and read policies and put the glasses of the 21st century policing and the glasses of the Campaign Zero to read those policies. And that was what I wanted to do. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment.
Thank you,
Patricia. I see Lindsay and then Sandra.
So there was one paragraph on page 22 that I was just hoping people might be willing to comment on, because it didn't seem to reflect what I heard from what I thought I heard, and I can be wrong. So I just want to make sure. So it's on page 22. It's the second paragraph down. It talks about allowing space for uncomfortable conversations and understanding that the AHCPP was as much about the cathartic process of allowing members of marginalized groups to speak truth to power as it was about crafting policy recommendations. And I felt like I heard people say something else. I felt like I heard people saying they wanted to make specific recommendations and see specific change. So I just was hoping that people could comment, and maybe I'm wrong and I misheard or just didn't understand.
No, thank you for mentioning it, but it's exactly what I'm talking about. We were supposed to do serious analysis here, and because the information wasn't there.
Patricia, I'd like to invite you to speak after Sandra, if that's okay. And then I see Silveria. So I see Sandra, then Patricia, and then Silveria.
Okay, ironically, what I want to mention and point out, and not asking what we've done with it, is why women are not listened to enough by cops and people that represent authority and position and are put in positions to change things. Officer Magana raped so many women, and here we are. I just talked to a woman who was frustrated because cops would not take any police. They would not take any reports from women, Asian women who had been sexually assaulted. And I feel like I'm jumping in here where I shouldn't be, but at the same time, I'm very frustrated because women don't get listened to. Thank you, Patricia. That's all I gotta say.
Okay. Is that all, Sandra?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'd like to invite Patricia to speak, and then Silverio.
I just want to apologize for interrupting. Thank you. I already said thank you.
Okay. I see Silverio and then Erica.
So yes, I agree. I agree with everything that Sandra said. I agree with what Patricia said. And I do want to say that it did get called. I received several phone calls from people who were saying that they were feeling as though they weren't being able to be as vocal as some of the other strong voices that were on the ad hoc committee. And that was definitely something that was, that I saw. And being a male, being a BIPOC person, I had a difficult time trying to advocate for my community and to also trying to give space to the people who I wanted to see have more opportunity to present themselves. So I think that there is some place to call that piece into question. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for bringing it up, because I did want to hear more from the BIPOC community, from the people who were, you know, I think kind of edged out and not as vocal. And part of that is this is a you know, it was a steep learning curve. There was a lot of people who maybe didn't participate in community processes or sit on boards before, but we should have made space for that.
And is that a comment you'd like reflected more strongly in the report than currently, or is it just a comment?
It was something that I was actually working on for my statement.
Okay.
But I would love to have something to that effect on the report as well. I mean, it was definitely something that a lot of people noticed, and then, you know, there were stronger voices that sort of led the conversation, and I did not want to. I didn't want to be a person who was being any more antagonistic than I already was in bringing that up, but it was pointed out.
Okay, Erica.
I wanted to say thank you so much for opening up the door to this conversation that it was needed to have, that we all needed to have special people that you know, we are members of historical marginalized communities. I did my best to be participant of the committee. However, there was a point that I just lost. You know, the committee lost my engagement because of the narrow mindset and the lack of vision that as a community we have. I noticed that I'm going to talk by myself, that every time I had the opportunity to participate, I bring a different perspective to what I see, how other nations are solving this issue, not just in the United States, but in other countries, in remote places where they are dealing with armed groups that belongs to the state, armed groups that belongs to guerrillas, armed groups that belongs to paramilitary forces. Yet they are trying to be who they are and trying to be honest to their core values. However, here as a community, I feel like we do a lot of PR. We invest a lot of money in public relations and marketing, money that could be invested in different ways. As a public relations practitioner, I learned that the best strategy is the truth. So I feel that as a city, we are trying to look as much diverse as we can, yet we don't take further steps to actually making things happen. And you know, a couple of times for certain members of the group, I received these comments that, you know, that my perspectives are not fit for the system. And I think that's why we are doing this ad hoc committee, because we as a city and as a conscious human beings, we have come to the realization that killing people is not a solution to our problems as a society. And that's precisely why we are here. And if we invite people to bring different perspectives, and then perspectives are being shut down because according to certain minds, they don't fit within the system. I thought that we are trying to dismantle a system based of fake truths. I thought that's why we are here. I'm a teacher. I'm here to actually make things happen, because I don't want that my students who are members of historical marginalized communities in 10 years are in the news because they were killed, right? And I am already seeing some of my students going through this, you know, specifically Black students. I'm here for them. I'm here for them. And I came here to
Erica, time check of 30 seconds.
So if we are going to create a space where we're going to try to create a different vision, we had to be open to actually listening and creating other visions. And I wanted to publicly say that I fully support the document that LULAC did. And I appreciate they included me to read, and I fully support it with my signature into the document, because, you know, here in the United States, whether we like it or not, people of color, indigenous, Black, and Asian American people, we are in the same boat. We're second-class citizens. And maybe right now, people from mainstream community thinks that that is not going to happen to me. Well, you know, it's happening to me. My best friend's white blue eye, her dad was killed by police in Alabama. So this is not far from your home, from your neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. I see Ibrahim, but before I call you in, Ibrahim, what I'm hearing from the room is that the piece of copy that sparked that conversation, which came from Lindsay, is something that members don't feel reflects their experience, and so that it should be struck from the report. Is that a fair assessment of at least some of the opinion in the room? And if there's anyone who wants to defend it or feels that it should remain in, please also speak up.
I'm sorry, I don't know which portion it is you're asking us to talk about.
There's a section in, I believe it's in the challenges section, which says that the ad hoc committee was about both crafting policy as well as speaking truth to power. I'm paraphrasing that, but it's clearly caused some issue within the committee. I'd like the final report to reflect the broadest possible consensus. I'm very happy to remove that sentence unless anyone has a strong objection to doing so.
I would like to have it removed.
Okay, thank you, Silverio. Ibrahim.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, reflecting on this committee, I want to say that Brian and I are representing the NAACP here. For those who don't know, the NAACP is a civil rights organization created in 1909. And before this ad hoc committee, we had the opportunity to engage with law enforcement throughout the country, but also here in Eugene. All the police department here in Eugene have had some sort of conversation with NAACP. We have represented people to community members who have experienced police brutality. Most of the police victims, at least those who file a complaint and go to the media, somehow have had a contact with us. Either myself or Brian as the legal redress chair. I was the legal redress chair. Brian is now the legal redress chair. She's also the lawyer who represent a lot of the victim who contact NAACP. We have been doing this for a while. And we have been organizing around this for a while. And not only locally, but nationally, where we have been supporting victims, we have been having conversations with police department. And we feel strongly about this issue. And that's why we have organized within the ad hoc committee and outside of the ad hoc committee. I'm not embarrassed at all to say that, because we wanted to make an impact here, and tonight we're walking out here thinking that we made a point. We think that looking at what's going on at the national level with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, we, as a Black community, African American community, we have experienced a lot of police brutality to the highest of horror that you can think of what a human being can do to another. If you take the history of the police department in America, it was slave patrol. It started against Black people.
Ibrahim, a 30-second time check.
Thank you, Kevin. It started as the oppression body to Black people. And we will never forget that. And for that reason, we will never compromise with anybody that thinks that they can stand on our way. We're gonna walk you through, we're gonna walk you over, we're gonna get to where we wanna go. I wanna finish this by thanking Kaz, you, Kevin, Jeremy, and Mo. Emotion were high here. We every single day, every single time you call a Black person to talk about the police, you're asking them to talk about lived experience. So sometimes it's not easy to control our emotion. We express what we feel. So for that reason, I have happened to have heated conversation with some people here on this call and on this group. I apologize if I hurt anybody feeling. It was not my intent. My intent is to express how we feel, how our members feel. I want to thank you for the kindness, the time you're taking to listen to the group and trying to mitigate emotions. Because
Ibrahim, thank you. I would love to have you.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up in 2 seconds.
Okay, yeah, you're a little bit over time.
Yeah. This is a diverse group, and everybody in this call here is very passionate about the topic. So sometimes we went overboard, but we want you to know that we appreciate highly what you guys have done as staff to put this meeting together, but also to conduct our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. It's always difficult to cut someone off when they're trying to praise you, but thank you for taking care of sorry, for mentioning that kind praise. I now would like to once again get a canvas of the room to see if there's any other issues that members would like to raise. Then I'd like to invite the committee to consider whether Joshua should be brought in. Again, I'd like to get a consensus check, but if anyone wants to have a vote on it, I'm happy to do so. I'm not really hearing or seeing any objection. Jeremy, please could you let Joshua Stroud into the main room, and we'll give
yes.
We'll give 5 minutes on the basis that there'll be a little bit of time to introduce and then bring him in as well, if members are okay with that.
You know, while he's getting set up, after this, we're going to vote. And I thought it would be really wonderful. I don't know if we'll have time, but at the very beginning of this process, we went around the room and people said very briefly what they hoped to get out of this. And I thought it would be a nice closure if we had the time to go around the room and everybody could say one word of finality.
Sure. If possible, I'd like to do that after the vote to take care of the business of the day. So Joshua has his hand up in the attendees. We seem to be struggling to get him into the panelist list. I'd just like to invite anyone else who has any further thoughts on the meeting to vote, to speak while we're trying to set that up. Otherwise, we could, if members are happy to, move to an approval of the report as amended over the course of tonight, and with the inclusion of the amendments that were put into the final draft. The only other changes we're anticipating are, I see Joshua. So I'll just finish what I was saying. The only other changes we're anticipating are spelling, punctuation, and grammar. And we did prioritize, as I said earlier, getting you something rather than getting you something that has every period in place. So my sincere apologies to those among you to whom this matters. It matters to me a lot. I'm a literature major, so I was a little bit uncomfortable sending that out. But we have Joshua. Joshua, we'd like to give you about 5 minutes if you wish to take that much time, because Justin can't be here to speak about the American descendants of slavery experience of policing, and insofar as you can, the ad hoc process.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
It's been a long day. So again, thank you for having me. I'm speaking on behalf of the organization that Justin Myers represented. And I just wanted to tell you guys that in light of the guilty verdict from yesterday, I just want to offer our organization's perspective. The murder of George Floyd has its genesis in our nation's failure to address and repair the economic and social bottom casting of Americans who descend from this institution of slavery. And as an organization, ADOS Oregon maintains the belief that Derek Chauvin's guilty verdict was only obvious. It wasn't justice. His guilty verdict does not and will not fix the systemic issues that led to Brother Floyd's and countless others' senseless demise. There's a lot of soul searching that we have to do as a community, a lot of tedious work, and a lot of humble yet aggressive reckoning to be had to make this land the land of liberty and justice that it postures as. That considered, we commend this committee, we commend the city, the mayor, city manager, for taking this step toward accountability. ADOS is and will remain engaged. However, our consistent and prevailing concern is that we, those Americans who descend from slavery, will somehow get lost in this effort. It happens way too often where the outcries that are arisen for justice and legislative change comes at the hand of our demise. And although we fight for justice for all, oftentimes the justice that comes benefits us the least. And so we're just consistently committed to working to help. We just don't want to become the mules, once again, that carries the water that creates some legislative progress where we benefit the least. So again, we thank you and applaud the effort. We want you to know that we're all engaged. I really appreciate the sincerity and the passion that I see in some of the comments. And just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much for stepping in, Joshua, and for those very powerful words. Sandra, I see you, and then I'd like to move to the approval process if possible. Sandra, your hand is raised. It may be from earlier. Okay, not hearing anything from Sandra, so.
Hang on, wait.
Okay.
Joshua, I want you to know I helped put together a march and we yelled Black Lives Matter with all our might. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for that, Sandra, and thank you for being here as well. I appreciate that that this has been a real stretch for a lot of people involved. And I'd like to thank everyone on this committee before we move to vote on whether or not to approve. So I'd like to get a motion, if possible, that on the basis of the amendments that have been discussed and agreed here tonight, including the removal of the paragraph which has not been up on the screen to do with catharsis, that we could get a motion to approve this report and send it on to City Council.
So moved.
Thank you. That was Silverio, yeah?
Correct.
Sorry. And can I get a second?
A second.
I saw Ib.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, the roll call.
The roll call it is, we'll start at the top with Ems.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Betsy.
Yes.
Macy.
Yes.
Ibrahim Koulibaly.
Yes.
Lindsay Foltz.
Yes.
Ib Hamidi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes is my vote.
Thank you, Ib. Joel.
Yes.
Erica. Erica.
Yes.
Thank you. Brian.
Yes.
Silverio.
Aye.
Tauna.
Yes.
Guadalupe.
Yes.
Rick, are you here? David.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Patricia.
Yes, thank you.
Marty.
Yes.
That's a unanimous vote of 17-0.
Well, thank you, everyone. I will do as Marty suggested. We have just under 15 minutes left. But genuinely, truly, and from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you. This has not been a straightforward process. It's been a steep learning curve for everybody involved. Your dedication, your courage, and your passion throughout this process has kept us going as a facilitation team. And I would just like to thank you all for the commitment. And I think there is something that feels a little bit serendipitous about the fact that this process was started by the murder of George Floyd. And the day before we approved this report, we saw, if not justice, then at least accountability. So once again, it's been a pleasure getting to know all of you. And I hope I will get to know you more as this process moves on to its next phase. So with that, I would like to put Marty on the spot, seeing as this was all his idea. If you'd like to give 3 words to highlight what you feel the process has been.
I'll miss you guys, believe it or not. I walk away realizing that to stop injustice, it takes both tearing down what is not right, but it also takes building justice. So I hope that you will join Brian, Michaels, and I in expanding Cahoots. Thank you.
Okay, Patricia.
Thank you. I think it takes focus, it takes appreciation for everybody and every person that is being participating in all these meetings, that we appreciate each other's efforts and we focus on the work. So there's a long way to go, and for me, it's that I'm still in. I will be always in.
Thank you, Patricia. Sandra, just a few words.
I want to thank everybody for being here for this journey with me. It's been enriching. It's been heartbreaking. And there's always more to say. And I could go all night. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Sandra. David.
Yeah, just thank you, Kaz, Kevin, and Nia, Jeremy, and Mo for facilitating the process. It wasn't an easy task. I guess the words that I'm left with is just, you know, this is a start, and it's an ongoing process. One thing I have learned is that we need to think about how we do these kinds of meetings in a way that works for people. And I appreciate that we have a structure, but I don't know that it's the structure that we need to make change. And so I think that's a lesson that I have, is just we need to do things differently, because this could have been different, and we can do it, but we just need to remember that.
Okay, I'm going to ask Rick, but I'm not sure that he's on the call any longer. Rick, if you're there. If not, I think the next person inverse alphabetically on my list is Guadalupe.
Yeah. Well, I too want to just say gracias to everybody on this committee, and for sure Kaz and Kevin and other staff and folks that have sat in and listened. To be really honest, this has been a really difficult process for me. Systems are difficult because they work community folks and those of us that work different in the community, it's harder to fit into a process that just doesn't feel comfortable. But I feel like I learned a lot. Obviously, it was hard to participate at times because the process is so different from what I'm used to. I think the words I want to I'm left with is one of struggle. I feel really scared because I've done a lot of these processes, and I feel like we're still here having the same conversation. And at the same time, after yesterday's results of the trial, I also feel hopeful. And I know that we can't just walk away if we want to make sure that something actually happens to prevent what has been going on historically in this country and the impact it has, especially on the Black community. So I'm going to stay hopeful, or I wouldn't be participating in all these meetings and trying to learn and at least participate. So thank you.
Thank you, Guadalupe, for your participation and for your hope. Next on my inverse alphabetical list is Silverio.
So the beginning of this process, I felt as though I was open to having these dialogues, and I kept saying Justice League, but what I meant was Super Friends. In the 80s, if you all remember, there was a cartoon. It was all the different not Marvel, but the DC people that were coming together, and they were the Super Friends, and they had this little place in Manhattan, probably. You know, a bunch of us who are already doing this work that are committed to seeing some justice for our communities, and this community specifically. And I didn't know what to expect. And looking now today at what we finally culminated with this report, and being able to finally get some language into this report, or this policy that says that we're looking at eliminating chokeholds, which for me, I was there when Rodney King was beat. I was in Los Angeles. I was a young person who saw how the...
Oye, no me dejas oír a Silverio.
Patricia, thank you.
I saw the effect that Chief Gates had using chokeholds in Los Angeles at the time, and that the whole Rodney King thing was just the culmination of how we were responding to, and I say we because I was there, we were responding to the frustration that we had. I don't want to come to that place again. Last summer, we had a number of protests that were taking place across the nation. Here, specifically in Oregon, a number of people that were going every day up to Portland that were protesting. That's been noted nationally. We've been noted nationally for our stand on Black Lives Mattering. And today, finally, at this final piece of this report, I feel as though we can have some change, that we are making those changes. As small a step as they are beginning to happen. They are beginning to take place. And I'm excited about that. It makes me feel a little bit of validation for all the work that I know Guadalupe has been doing and a number of other people and me, myself personally, have been doing for years in this community. So I am grateful for that. And I do want to say, I'm stealing this from Ben Harper, who is also from California. When the people lead, the leaders they will have to follow. For it's you that has the right, the authority, and you, the one who is right, is the majority. So when we, the people, lead, those who are in power, they're going to have to follow with our guidance.
Thank you, Silverio. I have Brian, then Erica, and then Joel, just so you're aware of the order. Brian?
Hi there. It's hard for you to recognize how pleasantly surprised I am from where this committee now has ended up from where I thought it would be when we began. It's my personal comment to everybody involved in this committee to get us so far off square one, so to speak. And I say that also about the facilitators, Kaz, Kevin, and Mo. They exceeded my expectations, which were good at the time. I want to leave you with two thoughts about this whole process. One is, I think it's great that it started because of George Floyd. I really do, obviously. But what's sad is that it didn't start with the murder of Mr. Rodriguez, a Latino man murdered for being in a white neighborhood. And the chief said he wants his officers to be stopping people who are in neighborhoods they don't belong. It's sad that we can see it all the way over there, but we can't see it right here, that we're unwilling to recognize it in our own backyard. It saddens me, but it fulfills my expectations. And yet, George Floyd's impact came here and awoke a lot of people in this committee, and I'm very grateful for all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We will overrun. I hope members are okay with just running through the order. I think it's important for everyone to have their final say. But with that, I also ask members to respect a bit of brevity. Erica, I have you and then Joel. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And I wanted to take some time to say thank you so much to every person that were part of the committee for the time and commitment and the energy put, because it definitely, it takes your energy to go through this information that sometimes is painful. And I wanna say, that I really appreciate the opportunity and say thank you to the people that invited me to be part of this committee. And also thank you for the committee for allowing me to invite an elder from my community, Sandra Shortridge. And thank you, Sandra, for taking the time to be part of the committee. I wanted to share the 3 words that it comes to mind after living this process. For me, one word would be to unlearn things that are that we know that those are fake truths that had been taught and had been teach and reteach, and we know that they are not true. So with this unlearn, I invite you to learn more about the history of these lands and to keep honest to the truth. that, you know, we still live in lands that were unceded, and there's still conflicts, and that indigenous nations are still here and are still wanting their land back. And that's why I'm thinking and learn. And also I think another word that comes to mind is to relearn, because it's important for all of us to relearn who we are and where we come from. Because as human beings, our very first sovereignty is to know who we are and where we're coming from. And we know that unless you're Native American, you are not from these lands. And in a certain way, we are also settlers into these native lands. So we had to unlearn and we need to relearn. And the last word that comes is to rebuild. We need to rebuild, but just in truth. So I put a prayer and a thought that may we always remember and be able to listen the truth, to see the truth and to speak the truth, because just in truth we can build and rebuild our communities. We know that there is a lot of, we have to do a lot of dismantling of institutional racism and oppression, and that has to be undone. And this cannot be reformed. We cannot keep putting band-aids in a wound that needs to be taken care of seriously. And the solution is not to bring more people of color into a system that is proof that damages us. We need to change the system for all of us to be included. Bringing people to a system that is pretty much designed to destroy indigenous, Black, Asian, and people of color spirits is not okay. So please, let's unlearn, relearn, and rebuild this together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erica. I do see that Councillor Evans is here and it has another meeting coming up. Councillor Evans, would you be able to say a couple of words and then we'll get back to our list?
Yes, Kaz, thank you. And first things first, I really want to thank all the members of this committee for participating in this process. I know that it's been a long haul. It takes up a significant amount of your personal time and your personal life. And I want you to know that I appreciate it, the council appreciates it, and I think our community as a whole appreciates it, because we do need change. We need substantive change in police policies, procedures, and tactics. This is just a first step for us. We will be going through another layer once the report is final and has been disseminated to City Council for our reading and deliberation. And then we'll sit down and go to work with the city manager staff and the police department and Chief Skinner to see what we can do to implement suggestions that are appropriate for implementation. The second thing is, and I'll just speak to this real quickly. I've been Black for 60 years, and in those times, I have had various situations with police personally. I have had situations where a number of my friends have been stopped. Some of them have had altercations with police that were not necessarily positive. And as an African-American man, as someone who grew up in an inner city, this is long overdue and extremely welcome that we are doing this, and we are going to change our city, and we're going to lead the way in the country. And what was my last point? I think that this will move us forward, and it will be moved forward by the efforts and participation of all of you here tonight, and other people around the city who are watching you and watching us and demanding change and demanding change that will, reinvent our police department and our way of addressing the issues that we have out on the street. And we need to really look at the social service issues that the police often have to deal with. And we need to apply the appropriate remedy for those social incidents that do not require a uniformed armed police officer. So thank you again. And I'm going to bounce off to my next meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you for dropping by, Councillor Evans. So we have Joel, then Ib, and then Lindsay.
Thanks so much, Councillor Evans. Hey, folks. I, like many of you, I'm very relieved about yesterday's decision. It's certainly not justice, but it is a step in the right direction. And I feel similar to the decision yesterday as I do to this committee. It's been a very long and frustrating process. Like many of you, I've been really concerned about how it's gone down and what's going to happen afterwards. But what is true is that I know that every single person on here is committed to what I'm committed to. And that's making sure that every single person that lives in our great city, that lives in our great county and state and country and world has the access to what some of us have access to and others are striving for, which at the end of the day is, to live a life and to be able to pursue that life, the life we want to live, to be able to pursue liberty, to be able to pursue happiness. And at the end of the day, that's I think that's what we're all here for. And that includes making sure that our community is safe, regardless of how we look, but especially those of us who are a little darker in complexion, like myself and my other brothers and sisters on this call. So I thank you all so much for your participation, for your commitment to doing the right thing, and for the love that we all have for our community. I look forward to seeing many of you, hopefully in person soon. I'm very excited to get my second vaccination on Saturday. I hope all of you are getting your second or have gotten your second, and I hope to see you all in the not so distant future. So thank you so much and have a great night, y'all.
Thank you, Joel. I have Ib and then Lindsay.
When we started this process, as people mentioned, it was pretty ragged and had warts, and I wasn't sure it was going to fly, but it was at least a really good reminder that we live in a diverse community, and I am so happy to hear the diverse opinions. They definitely made up for the uneven nature of this committee. And at the end of the day, we are trying to create justice for humanity, because we represent marginalized or non-marginalized. We represent humanity, at least in this piece of the land, the borrowed land, the ones that we are living on, that doesn't really belong to us. But there is something really sweet about how those different voices bring their honesty, their integrity, their passion for one thing, which is justice, human rights and justice. And that is very rewarding. It makes my cynicism about the only justice is the one that we find in the hereafter, not in this world. It brings it back to reality. It makes me believe in my fellow human beings. It is wonderful to see the diverse voices speak their piece and their passion. And you guys, you, Kevin, Mo, the rest of the crew have just been absolute. I mean, I don't envy your task. It is like herding cats. I'm one of the cats that you had to herd, but you guys have done a tremendous job of being patient being prudent and took your time and worked with those idiosyncrasies and warts that we brought into this process. I hope this is just a first step on a journey. I really do hope that that journey starts speeding up, because I really do believe that our Black brothers and sisters especially, enough is enough. Justice has to prevail. Thank you again, all of you, for being here, for putting your time, your efforts, your honesty, your passion into this, and thanks to the organizers for keeping us somewhat on task and bending the Roberts rules and, you know, loosening things so we can breathe a little easier. So thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, Ib. And I have to say you were a very easy cat to herd, all things considered. Lindsay, would you like to go ahead?
Thank you all. I don't want to take up any more time. I know that I took up a lot of space. And so I just appreciate, Marty. Thank you for making an opportunity, like calling people in and giving everybody a space means that this that we're doing right now, like we're actually hearing from everybody. And so I think there's a lot of power in making spaces where people are all given time and don't have to vie for it or you know, fight for it. And I have appreciated hearing from you all in just these few short minutes. I think it's teaching me a lot about maybe future processes and how to center the voices instead of centering the process, you know? Anyway, I'm learning. So thank you all for teaching me, and thank you for being here and for your energy, and for all the people who I know support you in being here and make sacrifices for you being here. So thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. I now have Ibrahim and then Macy. So Ibrahim, if you have any words you'd like to share.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I want everybody here tonight to know that if you are here in this call, if you're here, you have a voice. And that's very important. To me, I see activism. Activism has three major components. One, a group of people like to advocate, being the voice of those who do not have a voice. Another group like to lobby, make policy change the laws. And another group like to protest, show outrage. And I think if you go from protest to lobbying, that's how you get to see really how your work is making an impact. When you talk to the victim, I remember the first time I started advocating, I became an activist, or whatever they call it now as an activist. Back in the days, I was talking to a lady. I had her daughter in my hand, and I was playing with her daughter. She was at NAACP to meet with me as the chair of legal redress. She's white. I was playing with her daughter, and few minutes later, I said, okay, you want to talk to me? Yes. What the reason of your visit? And she told me that her husband has been killed, and it changed everything in me, because I had that daughter in my hand thinking that this little kid do not have a father. And they were there sitting right in front of me because she believed in me to be able to help them. That changed my entire perspective. That's why sometimes I become passionate. That's why sometimes I do not care about what people I'm talking to. I think they have the power to change things and they are not doing it. That's why I get mad. That's why I get sometimes out of balance, because I get to talk to those people many, many, many times. I'm gonna encourage each and all of you, consider what you can do. Some people do not have that opportunity. They do not have your audience. They do not have your aura. They do not have your connection. They are in this community. Brian was talking about people who do not belong to an area that the police have to make contact with them. That's what killed Rodriguez. We have to think that maybe if we voice our concern, maybe if we have the courage to talk, regardless of what people are going to think about us, regardless of your fluency in English or in whatever language it is, tell it as you feel it. Speak from your heart. Be an advocate. And then we are going to make change in this city. There are a lot of good police officers, a lot of good police officers. I would say the majority of the police officers are good. But I also happen to believe that every single good police officer, no one bad police officer. They will not talk about that person until the person is fired for something. And then you start hearing, yeah, we all knew this was going to happen. But sometimes it's at the cost of someone else's life. What we have seen with the trial of Chauvin is the police chief, all the executive coming to testify and say, this guy doesn't represent us. And we want to see that here. We want to see the police officers going out and say, you know, what you're doing, we don't stand for this. And we're going to report you. And we will support the police department. Thank you for what you do. I encourage you to continue doing what you do. As for staff, everybody know what I think about them. They're great. And I want to thank Mayor Vinnis, who was on call. Mayor Vinnis and Councillor Evans and Councillor Ye. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. And I'm sure everyone on this committee appreciates where your passion comes from, especially after yesterday's verdict and why you hold it. Macy, I'd like to invite you to say a few words if you wish to.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say that it has been an honor to serve with each and every one of you on this committee. For me, this committee has been very eye-opening to see so many people who want to see things changed in this community. But I also know that this is just one small drop in a huge pool. We have to be able to swim through eventually. And I just want to encourage everyone to keep an open mind about alternative ways to stop the killings of both Black and brown bodies, because there are so many different ways to go about this than to keep talking to a system that is rooted in pure racism, and to delve into all of these policies has really shown me that there needs to be some type of new system out there to ensure every single person's safety and security. And I really, really hope that this work doesn't stop here because it can't. We can't afford it. I'm sick of seeing deaths every day. I see it every day. I live it every day. And I don't want to live it anymore. I don't want this to be something that just happens anymore, because it shouldn't be happening at all. And so I really hope that this work doesn't stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Macy, for that. Well, I'm sorry, I'm a bit moved by that. This is hugely important work, and what you're doing on the Police Commission is a massive part of that. We have 3 people left as far as I can count, which is Betsy, Daniel, and Ems. If I've missed anyone in the queue, I do apologize. Please make yourself known. But I'd like to move to Betsy now.
I'll see you. From your words, Macy, to creators' ears. I'm like Guadalupe, I'm hopeful, but I'm concerned that the change may not be as great as we hope for. But as always, as I end every process, I do so with gratitude. So Ojali Helaga to everyone.
Thank you, Betsy. Daniel, and then Ems.
Thank you, Kaz. It's truly been an honor and a privilege to work with all of you. It's been an arduous process, an emotional process. It's been very much for me an educational process. I have learned so much. Before this, I hadn't even really delved much into the issues of policing. It was a steep learning curve, and I thank all of you, and I thank the facilitators as well for guiding us along. I'd like to echo what others have said, that this is a first step in a long process, that the work is just beginning. And I'd especially like to echo what Erica said, that this work can't stop with policing or even our institutions of public safety. We need to be looking at how systemic inequities and systemic exclusion is playing out in all the institutions within our city. It needs to be a concerted effort, it needs to be a coordinated effort, and it needs to engage all of us and our organizations and other communities who are not part of this process. And I look forward to partnering with you on continuing this work and on doing that important work as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Ems, and then I'd like to invite Mayor Vinnis to close out the meeting if she feels comfortable doing that, but otherwise we'll just close out for the day. Ems, please go ahead.
Okay, I guess I won't read my 30-minute speech. So it's bittersweet for me. Like a lot of you have said, it's hard work, it's tiring work, it's difficult work. But at the same time, I'm happy that at least it's a closure to the chapter. So then that way we can keep moving on. I have noticed that some folks here and or other organizations are not fully aware what intersectionality means and how it works. But I will still be working with them as long as I'm invited. I will, or even sometimes even when I'm not invited, I will still be there. And it's just been a pleasure to work with all of you. And sometimes it has not been a pleasure to work with all of you, but that's why we're here, because we're all different and we want to make change and move towards a common goal.
Thank you very much, Ems. And once more, if there's anybody that I've missed on my list, I have a lot of scribbles, so I apologize and I ask you to come forward. But if not, Mayor Vinnis, I'd like to invite you to close out this meeting.
Thank you so much. I am so moved by the comments that you have all made this evening. And this has been an enormous learning curve. It's been very powerful. It's been very troubling and very difficult. And I have a huge amount of admiration for all of you for persevering and bringing your whole hearts and your whole minds into this process, your life experience, your hopes for our community, your commitment to a better future. And my profound gratitude to Kaz and Kevin and Mo for powering through all of this, being creative, being agile, being responsive, as we learned, as we all learned together about how to have this conversation. And it has been an honor to hear from each of you. Thank you for all you have done. This is the first step of a very long journey. We know we have an enormous amount of work to do. And I'm with you on that. I'm grateful for your insights. I look forward to continuing conversations that I can have with each and every one of you as we move forward. And I look forward to doing the work ahead, and just, extraordinary appreciation and gratitude to all of you. So thank you so very, very much for your incredible work.
Thank you all. We're a little bit over time, but it's been a pleasure to hear all of your voices. And with that, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Motion.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for all you've done in this committee.
Good night, everyone.